Welcome everyone. My name is Barry Braster. I'm with the company Ediplan, and I'd be happy to do a session today where I'm going to introduce an e-learning course for clarity in writing and how that course can help you create more efficiency in authoring, more clarity in authoring, and also save cost. So this is not the actual course itself. That would be a little bit that would actually be really good if we would be able to do that in less than an hour, do an e-learning course. No, I will actually be talking about the e-learning course. And the e-learning course has to do, of course, deal with content and how that can impact your business. So before I talk about the course itself, a little bit of background information. When we see content, how important is that for our business? Well, if we write poor content, and what is then poor content, right? Well, if your customer has a bad experience with your product because of badly or ambiguously written content, that can then actually negatively affect your branding. Human errors and risks as a result of ambiguous content can have liability issues as a consequence, but again, negatively affect your branding as well. If your content is not clear and you have to translate your content in over, well, even if it's just one language, but we work for companies that do it in up to 50 languages. And if your source is ambiguous, then you cannot really expect your translated language, your target language, to be clear as well. And so in other words, the problem that you have in the source language is now going to be multiplied in all the other languages that you translate to. How many support calls do you receive because people are not understanding the content that you have written for them? Those are usually hidden because that's something that most companies are not necessarily measuring as far as what the support is costing us. Low quality, consistency in content across your global workforce, across your international customer bases. So if you have a group of writers and they are in different locations, whether it's in North America or Europe or in Asia, have you provided them with the same strategy as far as the content itself is concerned? So are they using the same style guide? Is there even the style guide available? Are they using the terminology consistent? Are different departments not using different words while they're actually talking about the same thing? And then not complying with regulatory contractual requirements in aerospace defense. You know, there's certain specifications that you need to meet with regards to your content, but the same can be said about other industries as well. If you have a data requirement, for instance, or if you want to comply to Microsoft Manual of Style or those types of style guides, then is that something that that you need to require writing against? And content that does not allow you to publish timely, that is not up to date, that is, in other words, not cost effective, can hurt your business in the end. So so content then as a business asset, right? So we see these macro trends accelerate the need for content quality. Good content can actually help you open new markets. Good content can elevate your customer experience and therefore lead to higher revenue. Complying with industry standards allow you to be industry credibility, show industry credibility towards your customers or contractors or suppliers that you work for or work with. And in the end, it allows you to future-proof your content because even if you're looking at, I don't know, things like artificial intelligence, IoT, augmented reality, then you still are going to need that same content, but it's just going to be published or used in a new way. So that being said, we so far over the last 15, 18 years or so have always been training our technical writers. So we have our own technical writers, close to 600 these days, but we also train our customers usually as part of an Hyper STE implementation. So Hyper STE is our content platform software. And when we implement that checker tool that helps technical writers check their content against rules on terminology, style guide, simplified English, and other types of writing rules, then training we see as an important part of that. And we have trained now over 3,200 people over the last decade or so. And with great results. Overall, the big value was that technical writers were able to learn to distinguish the need to know from the nice to know. And as a result, 40% less content was created. That means 40% less content also means less time in authoring, which also means less time and cost in translations. But the majority, or the big thing about these types of training is that people would learn how to write clarity in content, right? So rules like use articles in front of nouns so that these nouns can be recognized by your end users as nouns and not as verbs, which can cause confusion. If you use a word like switch, for instance, can be used both as a noun as well as a verb. And if you are not using articles in front of them, then people will not be able to recognize a verb from a noun because they're being used together in the same types of text. So training has always been an important part when we do an hyper STE or an STE implementation. And we've been doing those online, of course, in the last year specifically. But also a lot of them were given on site. Now, highly regarded, highly valued, but we were able to only train up to 10 people for online training and only up to 15 people per on-site training. The reason we left those numbers down is because day one, where we go through the theory, was followed up by a day two, where we go through the practical examples, and you want to make sure that everyone pays attention and everyone gets enough attention to understand the material. And you cannot ensure that if you are training groups of 30 or 40 or 50 or more. So that resulted sometimes in some challenges because we were able to, or we were not always able to. We had to basically organize multiple training sessions at customers that had 30 or more people that require training. But at the same time, we also had to leave out the individuals. So there's a lot of individuals and freelance authors around the world that would really be able to benefit from a training like this. So we were given the on-site training, we were given the online workshops with great results, but we felt that we left a lot of people out that would very much be able to benefit from a training like this. Hence, we decided to go from an on-site and an online course to now also being able to offer an e-learning course. So, and a little bit more about the why we are trying to do this and what values does it bring. So, well, I mentioned number one already, content is more and more regarded as a business asset. So this is one reason why you need to be able to allow technical writers, whether they are individuals, whether they are working with companies, whether they're working in large numbers, all to be able to go through a course like this in order to improve and further, improve and get to a certain level, be able to standardize your way of writing and let that be open to everyone. Because that is going to influence your business in a very positive way in the end. STE technical writing courses help writers focus on the need to know. I mentioned already, this is one of the big values that this would actually bring. Less time to write, cost savings, including for translations. I mentioned already that over the past years, we've trained over 3,200 people. But the groups that we train in was usually in between 5 to 15 people, making it either too costly for individuals. So if you wanted to buy this course individual online, or for people to have, or companies that would have more than 30 people, you would need to give some challenges because we would need to have training classes going back to back in order to get everyone trained. We would also be able to give trainer courses, but again, I think we know actually by doing an e-learning course, this would definitely solve that challenge. It was an internal issue as well because we are growing with over 600 writers who are required to go through an STE course when they're being employed by Edaplan, for the simple reason that when we provide technical writing as a service to our customers, they need, our technical writers need to be aligned with strategic content goals, so that we can create that additional value for our customers. And so every writer that works for Edaplan has to go through a course like this in order to assure that value. Well, another reason, of course, is working from home. So that's, of course, has happened for all the wrong reasons, unfortunately, over the last year. But as we move forward, we see our business, and we see a lot of other businesses continuing with the working from home component, which means that 30% or even 50% of our employees will continue to work from home as we move forward, and they need to be able to get access to a course like this. A learning management system. Having a learning management system will actually allow you to better monitor your students. So on an individual level, right? So collect results that are usually discussed and monitored on a group level, but now do it on an individual basis is a really good thing that you can use. Actually, one of the key aspects of this e-learning course is that it is possible for us to license the whole course to customers who are interested in the course, but are not interested in signing up and logging online at the Edaplan portal, but would like to have that course run on their own and within their own LMS, and that's actually possible as well. But you can contact me for questions about that. Individuals are, as I mentioned already, able to take this course, but now actually offered at a very affordable price, because it's on an individual level. And the same goes for large groups of technical writers, being able to align their content. So we have customers that have hundreds of writers like we do ourselves. We have close to 600 writers, I mentioned. Well, if you want to have them all go through a course, and you need to do it on, through groups of 15 or 20, then you're going to, that's going to take quite some time. And doing it this way, you can actually have everyone trained within a very, very quick time frame. And what is also nice, of course, it's just nice to have with this course, is that we're able to say that we are the first ones to offer this type of course as an e-learning package, that is. So what does it entail? And I'll show you a little bit of a glimpse in a moment. But we have now, since a few weeks, have launched it with great success already, I may add. So it's both available to freelance writers as well as enterprises, to allow you to create the best possible content for your organization, or for you yourself as an individual, for the types of projects that you work on. It includes over 3 hours of video material. That means that we have about 11 sections in the course itself. The 11 sections are, well, I'll actually show you how they're divided, but it's parts of speech, words, noun clusters, verbs, sentences, etc. And each module we explain. Our trainer actually explains the writing rules using great examples. Talks about not just how to write in simplified English, but also why certain rules are there, in order to increase the understandability for technical writers. And each module is then followed up by a set of exercises, so people then have to go through some questions. If the term is a past participle, what then belongs to that past participle? Is it showed, broke, installed, attaching, so that people understand how words are being used in what context, and how to create clarity from them. It's very easy to navigate through. People who go through the course will get a certificate of attendance. It's hosted in our own learning management system. Pricing starts at €650 per participant, which is the equivalent of approximately $765. But discounts start to apply when you purchase it beyond 10 participants. you actually get a free copy of our government content governance software HyperSTE, so our content quality software HyperSTE, for the duration of the course. And the duration of the course will be 2 months. So the moment you purchase it, you will be given 2 months time to complete the course. That again is, I should say, if you take the 3 hours plus the exercises, it should take a technical writer an average of a full day, I would say 6 hours. So including some coffee breaks and lunch breaks, of course, it will take you the 1 full day to go through a course like this. But you can take up to 2 months to fully complete this course. And that means that within those 2 months, you can go through the course again, continue to do the exercises again, just to ensure that you get to know the material as best as possible. I mentioned already it's possible to purchase the course as a SCORM package, so that we will simply do an export of the package as a SCORM package and then deliver that to you so that you can host it in your own learning management system. And then we also follow up the course if need be with a workshop that can take place online or on site with additional questions that we can help answer into how to apply the course to your own specific content. That's usually something that we do during an online and an on-site course as well, where we go, where we ask people to share their own content with us, and then we see how we can apply that or these writing rules through the STE e-learning course to that particular content, to their own particular content. So, so that being said, let me open up the course here. You should be able to see it. Let me make sure that you can. Yes, so in here we are in the Edaplan learning environment, so learning.edaplan.com, and you can see that we have, since I'm one of the system administrators, I have the ability to go to, and it's also because it's hosted in eFront. We also have connectivity with Microsoft, so that means that whenever e-learning courses are needing to be done by Edaplan employees about hygiene and about cybersecurity, then they have to go through that. And so we have multiple e-learning courses that we have created internally. But if here I click on STE e-learning course, it opens up and we see how much percentage I was able to complete. You see which sections I was able to complete. It's pretty easy to navigate through. If I click on resume here and I pause this in a moment, you can see some exercises here, but the main menu, if I click on that, shows us the main menu, of course. Table of contents allows us to navigate through different modules, as I'm also able to do over here. Resources, important to mention that there's a copy of the course book that will be made available to you at no additional cost. That's a few hundred pages. In size. It includes actually a lot more exercises that you can go through in your own time, and it also includes a verb sheet. And the verb sheet is kind of like a 2-pager that has the approved verb sheets. I'm sorry, the approved verbs as well as the explicitly non-approved verbs. Specifically, the non-approved verb sheet is going to cause a little bit of frustration with the technical writer, but that's because what do you mean I'm no longer allowed to use this? But that's unfortunately the name of the game. So we have again, as I mentioned, the instructor-led course, which means that you're able to go through. Oh, I need to just restart this. So resume. It's resuming now with parts of speech. And again,
let's start with how this course works and how to navigate.
Get your navigation info. It's all explained. So I'll click on next here.
About this course. In this module, we are going to learn e-spec. Let's start. This module is called About This Course. In this module, we are going to.
Okay.
This is the main menu. Here you can see the topics in this module.
And here you're basically getting information about, there's also a voiceover now that takes me through audio over how this needs to be done. But if I click on parts of speech, for instance, and I resume here, then it's a little bit slow because probably of all the different connections that are going on right now, but here we are. So parts of speech. And we have now a 22-minute module where we explain through slides, but also show examples, illustrations, everything that you need to know in order to go through this. This is something that you can play over and over again before you even go through the exercises. Again, you have 2 months to fully complete the course. You can do it 1 time, you can do it 10 times. It's really up to you in order to understand the material at best. So yes, let me just go through the next portion and just show you an example of an exercise.
Now it's time to practice what.
So for instance, we have this, is it the preposition where we're talking about one or on or this or each. So we're really getting a little bit into the detail in the beginning on, you know, what is a preposition, what is a past participle, what is a present, what's the present tense, etc. So we really teach the writers on, we really go back to basics. And if I then go to the module for, let's say, procedural writing, and I'll show you an exercise there. So here we have an 8-minute explanation about procedural writing. We go through that. And then after that, we go through an exercise, start the exercise. Oh, by the way, good to mention maybe that we have currently set the threshold to about 80%. So 80% of the exercises need to be done successfully in order to pass the course, if you will. We will give certificates, but those certificates will be based on attendance because we cannot, it's something that some of our customers need to be okay with, of course. Some people say 50% is good enough. Other people say, no, it needs to be a minimum of 80%. And that's something, of course, that can change and can be different for individuals as well as for companies. So we kept that a little bit more generic in order to make the course work for your specific needs. This is something that can be adapted, by the way. But in this case, we show an example of a sentence: pressurize the fuel system and check that the pressure light is out, the shut-off valve light is still illuminated, and fuel is not flowing into the delivery tube. Bit of a technical sentence here, but are we allowed to use the word pressurize, for instance? But we see here that the light is out. The shut-off valve light is still illuminated. So we say out, we still illuminated, and fuel is not flowing. We're using a gerund here. So those are the things that are kind of wrong with this, that people will understand once they go through the course. And then we give basically multiple choice. Do you think STE, Simplified English, is A, B, or C? So for instance, if I click C and I submit it, I will be told no, the answer is incorrect, try again, and then you have one more try to get to the right answer. You are able to review the answers of your of the questions that you went through afterwards as well, so you can continue to learn from that. So that kind of concludes this webinar. Lavonia, I'd be open to any questions at this stage. Lavonia, are you still with us? Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Am I coming through clear? Okay, because I think there's a little bit of a delay in my connection. One of the first things was, can you give an example of verbs? So
You're breaking up a little bit.
I think that more detail about that question.
Which question? I heard you said something about a verb question.
It's in the chat. It's, can you provide an example?
Let me go over to the chats. Verbs not allowed. Verbs not allowed is, for instance, a verb that would be allowed is do, because it's very easy to understand. It's short and it's to the point. But there's a lot of ways of saying do, right? You can perform, you can execute, you can follow. So a lot of different ways. Now, not necessarily anything wrong with the word follow or execute or perform, but there are so many different verbs that in essence are trying to say the same thing, that do is then the more preferred way, because again, it's the most easiest to understand, and it's also a very simple word rather than execute, for instance. And execute can again be used for other purposes. Another example is, as far as a verb, is make sure. Make sure would be the approved verb, but there's also be sure, ensure, validate, verify, inspect, examine. I'm saying 6 words here while they're all trying to say the same thing. So check. So what you don't want to have is to say one sentence would have check, the next one ensure, then the other one be sure, the other one validate, because you're going to create confusion with your end user because you are using different words. Could be also with regards to nouns, it's the same thing. If you're using different nouns for the same word, or at least with the same meaning, people are going to think that you're talking about something completely different. They're going to assume that, and that's going to cause confusion. So that's one problem. The other problem is if you're going to then use words that can have multiple meanings. So for instance, if I say check the light, right? Well, there's a light in my room and I'm checking it. So from an English grammar perspective, this is perfect. However, what am I trying to tell the end user? Check the light. Okay, I'm checking the light. Do I need to check if it goes on, off, turns yellow, green, orange? So in other words, I'm missing a reference. This is another reason why make sure is approved, because when you say make sure that the light, well, now my sentence is incomplete. So by using make sure, you enforce a technical writer to add a reference to it. Nothing wrong with check or ensure for that matter, but you have to make a choice. And once you have made that choice, you need to be consistent with that choice. So if you're going to say ensure is going to be ensure that, for instance, is going to be the way we're going to be writing from now on, then of course there's a way, or there needs to be a way that you have all the writers within your organizations use ensure. And that's where the checker tool comes along. So with HyperST, we have the ability to do that check for you. So once the trainer has been trained on the writing rules, it's then the checker tool's job to check your work as a technical writer that you are indeed using either check or ensure or make sure that used in a consistent way in your technical documentation. And I give you tons more examples, but yeah.
Yeah, she said that makes sense. And so the other question, which it kind of just leads into that, was can you show some examples of noun clusters?
Yes, so noun clusters again, same thing. So the writing rules for noun clusters are not more than 3 nouns in a noun cluster. Why? Because if you're using 4 or 5 or 6 in a noun cluster, your audience is going to not know anymore which one of those words belong to what. So if you are saying the third dome chassis window securing screw threaded hole, right, which is a noun cluster that has 9 nouns in them, people are going to get confused. And that means that you have to break up those nouns into noun clusters of not more than 3 words in each cluster, again, to avoid confusion. Another rule for noun clusters is that if you're going to use a word as a noun, that means you can no longer use it as a verb. So if you're going to use it as one part of speech, in this case a noun, you can no longer use it as a verb. So if you're going to say switch is the approved noun, you can no longer say switch off the switch because you're using it both as a verb as well as a noun. The third rule is pick the noun that causes least amount of confusion. This is a really tricky one because if you're going to ask your subject matter experts, your SMEs, or your engineers which word it should be, they tend to kind of take possession of their words because that's what the machine is, that's what the machine does, or we've always called it this particular way, versus your technical writer who has to create clarity from it, and even marketing sometimes gets involved. Well, we have to call it different because that word sells and that word does not sell. So you have to basically get consensus within an organization. What are we going to call it, and can we call it that word, and can we call that word now, or can we use that word now consistently throughout the organization? Which can, again, sometimes cause confusion, or some, not confusion, but can sometimes cause a little bit of friction internally, because not always everyone can agree on that. We've seen companies that do acquisitions or mergers, and it turns out that the technical manual for company A is using an acronym that is also being used for company B that they have merged with, however, with a completely different meaning. And now you're going to have to update all your content to say the same thing, right? So, so those can go on and on about this, but those are the main three rules. So not more than 3 nouns in a long noun cluster. Only use it as one part of speech. So stick with the noun, no longer use it as a verb. And then 3, create consistency and clarity if you do have to pick which word you're going to be using from now on. One word can only have one meaning. So if you have a noun that it can have multiple meanings, the idea is that you're going to go away from that, because again, you don't want to confuse your end users. How does this e-learning differ to Intent from RSTE? I know I don't have to answer that during this webinar, but this is an e-learning course. So in Nuento, we went through it as well. We received our trainer certificate. We were actually the first company in the world to receive the trainer certificate from them. But it took us, or it took one of our technical authors, one of our technical trainers, I should say, our head trainer, about, well, a couple of months to complete it. So there's a lot of information there. Great course, very lengthy indeed. And it's instructor-led. It's an online instructor-led course. This is an e-learning course. So in the e-learning course, people can also, like with Inueto, do it in their own time. But in the case of Inueto, it's you're going through this together with an instructor. So it's not e-learning. Michelle has a question on, we can purchase the e-learning as a SCORM for our own LMS. Is there a cost difference? Yes, there's no cost per seat. It's actually one amount that you would pay for that. And really that depends on the number of users that you have, and we need to actually put a separate agreement in place. For the very simple reason is, once we have provided our customer with that SCORM package, you can use it any which way you want. You can have 1 user in it, you can have 5,000 users in it. There's no way that we can monitor that. And so we need to come up with a separate agreement. And also, so we would basically be licensing our product to you, which could also mean that, because we will be updating the e-learning course in due time, based on the feedback that we will receive, we will further optimize it. We need to then provide that update, and so there needs to be separate agreement in place for that as well. Do we have access to the platform using SAP logging or something? I tried to access, but with no success. Yes, you need to have a login. So in other words, once you purchase it, we will provide you with login details, and then you are good to go. In the next month or so, we'll probably be launching a trial version of the e-learning course as well. So out of the 11 modules, you will get 1 or 2 modules that you can then get free access to, just to kind of try it out. But we will launch that within the next month. Any other questions? No? Then Lavonia, you want to take it over?
Hopefully, if I don't have any delays here. Well, thank you everyone for joining today's presentation. If you do have any other questions for Barry, his email address will be included when I send out the recording, so you can follow up with him with any other questions that you may have or anything else. So if we don't have any further questions right now, we're going to let everybody go. Well, I think it's safe to wrap up, Barry.
Very
So
good.
thank you so much for your time, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And you all
Thank you.
have a good rest
40
of your
minutes is
day or
not
good
bad.
evening.
Thank you. And 40 minutes is not bad, right? Thank you, Lavonia. Thanks, everyone.